Alright, hi. So, fun fact, I actually finished Persona 5 at the end of last school year, but due to how busy I was, this is the first time I've actually been able to talk about this. So, I've been sitting on this script for months and months and months and months, and now I finally get to talk about this amazing game. So, the last time I talked about this, I was actually stuck in Okumura's palace, and I was fighting for my life with that. But fortunately, somebody in the comments did remind me that Haru existed, and so almost immediately after publishing that video, I went back, I beat him, and I was able to move on with the game and my life. Since then, I have beat the whole game, so let's just go through what my thoughts are on the ending and just the whole experience of this classic RPG. And, heads up, this is probably going to be long because I have to condense 120 hours of gameplay and story into this tiny little video that I'm just talking about. And obviously spoilers. If you clicked on this thinking there weren't going to be spoilers, I don't know what you thought I was going to talk about. Alright, so I'm going to start just by talking about the vanilla ending, which is where the original Persona 5 ended because I played Royal. So this is going to be everything after Okumura's palace up until Christmas. So Haru. Unfortunately, Haru was just added way too late in my opinion for me to really fall in love with her. So she always kind of just feels like an add-on to the core Phantom Thieves groups, which sucks because she is a really nice and sweet character, but I feel like she's just added too late for players to really get to know her and consider her the core Phantom Thieves. Okay, and then so after Haru's introduction is Sai's palace. And I kind of had mixed feelings on Sai the whole game. She was mildly irritating, but she made for a really interesting character once you hit her palace. So I'm gonna be so real. I could see the plot twist with Akechi coming from a million miles away. I mean, there was no way he was just oh yeah, I really have had a change of heart. I want to work with you guys. Y'all aren't evil after all. I knew something was up with him right from the get-go. And I'm going to be honest, the last time I talked about him, I think I talked a lot about how much I don't like him because he was just constantly, unendingly, nice. And he was just so irritating. He was, driving me crazy. I don't remember my exact verbiage in the last video, but I'm pretty sure I said something to the effect of he is the one character in this game I, actually despise. So I will say, once he betrays you and he stops being so nice, he gets a lot better, and I started not completely hating him. I mean, in just vanilla, I did still, generally dislike him because his whole story is oh my god, I'm so angsty, my life sucks, I have daddy problems. But, I liked him a lot more when he was finally in the antagonist role, a real antagonist, and not just, oh, he's just a jokey, fun thorn in our side. I never liked him in that role. So once he moved into being an actual real antagonist, I feel I liked him a lot more. It's just that as an antagonist, just in vanilla, he can come off, and to me, he did come off as being really kind of whiny. And also still frustrating because everybody is trying to help him and saying, dude, you're not the only one whose life sucks. And he's no, you don't understand how bad my life is. While freaking Haru is over here with no parents. Makoto has no parents. An has been through the ringer. And he's just going off about how, life sucks because his dad doesn't like him. No shade, but when you're talking in front of several orphans, that just feels kind of weak, But let's talk about one of the scenes with Akechi I did like. The scene of him interrogating Joker and then Joker staging his death, that was probably my favorite scene in the entire game. Because I really had, obviously I knew Akechi was the one who turned us in, everybody knew that. But I was not expecting that at all, the dude to just full on try to kill him. I was really surprised by that. And I was playing that, I got to that probably at 11 p.m. at night on a school night. And I stayed up for another hour and a half when I really shouldn't have. Because I just really wanted to know how Joker was not dead. Because I was there's no way they actually killed him off or anything. It was just, it came so out of nowhere. But was a really, really well done cutscene. It was so cool. And that's one of the few moments of this game that actually felt like a sucker punch to the gut. Because I did not see that coming at all, and it was so cool and so well done. But then here's the thing. After that scene, and it's revealed that Joker obviously didn't die, the whole thing for me personally feels kind of anticlimactic in storytelling. I feel after that whole interrogation bit and Joker comes back, I feel like, honestly, a lot of the stuff with Shido, it's not bad storytelling, it's just not as good as, like, some of the high points of the game, and it feels, like, very anticlimactic from that, and then Shido, he just feels like a guy. Like, that's, like, one of my biggest problems with Shido's Palace. He just feels like a guy, and so they go out of the war to be like, oh, he's connected to everything, like, everything that happened in the game, it's all connected to Shido. And throughout all that, you know, he just felt like a guy, and it just felt like the storytelling, it just kind of lost a bit of steam towards the end, and it got to the point where I mostly just wanted to get through all the Shido related content so I could get to the third semester, which I suspected was going to be a lot more interesting. It just felt like Shido as a villain did not have enough, like, oomph and, like, foreboding energy around him to really make me think of him as, like, the big bad. Which, I'm sure you might be thinking, well, he's not the final boss. But at this point in the game, you don't know that on your first playthrough. You have no reason to believe that there's going to be another fight after this. Because Shido is portrayed, like, the consistent messaging throughout the end part of the game is that Shido is the one behind everything, and if we can just take him out, like, society will be fixed, society will be changed, we will solve all of our problems. And so it's not so much about, like, what happens after his that I'm particularly complaining about. It's just Shido as a villain just never felt like he was worthy of being the final boss. Or, you know, they just keep going on, like, waxing poetic about how once we finally beat him, like, everything will be fixed, everything will be solved, like, he's awful, he's heartless, he's cruel. But for whatever reason, he just did not seem menacing enough as a villain for me to, like, to really hate him. To, like, you know, really feel like once we knock him out, like, everything's going back to normal. Compared to, like Fire Emblem Three Houses gets compared to this game a lot. Like, compared to their final bosses, like, it's nothing like that. When you're, like, you know, when you're setting up for the final boss, there's so much, like, emotion and energy and passion behind it. And Shido, it was just, like, he's a guy. He's a bad guy. He ruined people's lives. But there was nothing, like, for whatever reason, I just could not make myself be afraid of him or hate him as a character. And so it just felt, like, really underwhelming. And Yaldabaoth. Dude, I don't have a problem with stuff coming in from out of left field, right? I understand, you know, it's a JRPG, that stuff happens. But, so while I like the whole twist with the Velvet Room about him being the fake Igor and all the Velvet Room being manipulated and messed up, I liked that. But for some reason, you beat Shido and then randomly at the end, they throw in, oh yeah, by the way, evil god. And I get it's a JRPG, but there was nothing hinting at this. So while I liked the twist about the Velvet Room, it just felt so out of left field. And again, my same complaint with Yaldabaoth. He's introduced so late, and there's no hints leading up to it. In my opinion, that made me feel like, wow, this is a really bad villain. I really hate this guy. I really want to beat him. He just felt so, like, blah, and it felt like, oh yeah, we're beating him because he's the bad guy. So for a story that had so many, like, good villains, like, villains you hated, like, they were really good at making you hate the villains, and then even at the end, like, making you feel sorry for them, like when you're in Mementos and you see Kamoshida and Madarame, and, like, seeing how they are after having their hearts changed and they have no desires anymore, like, you feel bad for them after hating these characters. So after a whole game where they've been so good at making you really feel things about the villains and the characters, to then just have this random evil god show up, like, with no really, like, exposition, lead up, introduction, like, and you're just like, oh yeah, by the way, you hate him, you want to beat him. It sucks because it feels like what should be such an epic thing, it just feels really out of left field. And it's just like, oh yeah, so by the way, we have to kill this god before Christmas or whatever. Just a heads up. And it just felt, for a game this good, it just felt like a really weak end for a boss fight. Oh yeah, and the ending, with Sai asking Joker to turn himself in, I was like, girl, are you serious? Are you serious? How much I did for you? And you're asking me to turn myself in? Like, are you serious? Like, thank God Akechi shows up and is like, oh yeah, I'll go with you. Because I'm like, girl, she shows up asking you if you will turn yourself in just to make everyone's life the littlest bit easier. She literally just, her rationale is it would make our lives easier if you just turn yourself in. So would you please do that for us? Do us a solid. I was like, bro, Japan's legal system, man. Like, it makes no sense. Anyway, thank God Akechi showed up, because when she came up and asked that, I was like, dude, you gotta be kidding me. There's no way. There's no way. But yeah, how the game ended here, I definitely would have felt like pretty unsatisfied with it. So 100% I can see why they felt that adding the royal content and adding a third semester was a good idea, because it just feels like unfinished. It feels like it just doesn't feel satisfying. And so I could 100% see why they felt that making a new ending to this game was necessary, because I definitely would have not been happy if it ended here. So yeah, let's move on to the third semester. So the whole plot behind the third semester as a whole was really intriguing, and I really liked it. It was just, unfortunately, Persona 5 struggles with one thing consistently. And in my opinion, that is sticking the endings. But we'll get to that. So right off the bat, I think it's important to mention that while I liked Sumi throughout the game, I really liked her, I really did, her inclusion in the story felt really clunky, and it's not as bad. I know some people complain about how she's implemented in the main game. I actually didn't have a problem with that, and had I not known she wasn't in the original, I would have just assumed like she was there in vanilla. So that wasn't a problem to me. What was a problem was her implementation in the third semester. It felt just really weird and clunky and unnatural, while Akechi, on the other hand, in the third semester, felt like a very natural addition. He felt like he was always supposed to be there. It felt like they really worked him in well, and Sumi was just, unfortunately, a struggle the whole way through. So the whole thing with Maruki with the villain, I tried my best to avoid spoilers, but unfortunately, YouTube has this really funny thing where they will autoplay stuff for you. And so sure enough, a song called Maruki's Palace shows up while I'm listening to Price, because it's a banger. And so I was like, well, I wonder who the villain in the third semester could be. But anyway, I still, even knowing that, I thought he was a really well done villain. And the biggest high point I can give to the third semester is that when it comes to how they write their villain, which is Maruki, it really feels like a return to form, to the high point of storytelling for Persona 5. Which I think Kamoshida probably has the strongest storytelling in vanilla. And then I feel like Maruki is probably matching that in terms of how well he's written and motivations and everything. And it's interesting because Maruki is a very sympathetic villain, whereas Kamoshida is reprehensible. But yet it both feels like just such strong storytelling around the villains in completely different ways. It really feels like a narrative high point and a return to form to the beginning of the game, which I love. I mean, the whole idea of him trying to create what he thinks is a perfect world, and the protagonist having to, like, make their own minds about whether or not they think that's a good idea or not, it really feels like it has a lot more oomph and impact than all the stuff with Yaldabaoth. And I think the other thing is, too, is it actually feels like something we as players can debate, right? Like, nobody's like, was Yaldabaoth right or wrong? Like, we're all like, no, he's just cut and paste, very obviously the bad guy. That's what he does. But with Maruki, I think it's really cool because I always see people debating, and I was wondering, I was like, I mean, everybody does seem happier with Maruki's world, so is it, like, I know to get the true ending, you obviously have to say no to that, but I'm like, I kind of wish I could pick the other. So it really provides a lot more emotion and narrative oomph than I think Yaldabaoth did, because he was just there. Whereas Maruki actually makes you think critically and really connect with the characters to kind of think like, well, what do you honestly think is like the better ending for them, you know? And I have to give them massive props with how natural of an extension of the main game Royal felt. It really felt like Royal was always meant to be there, right? Like, if I bought Royal, I would have thought this was how the game was designed to be. This is how the game was always meant to be. And you know, which is especially why playing through it and like having the vanilla ending, I'm like, this just feels very abrupt. So they did a really great job at implementing Royal, and that it felt like this is how the game was always meant to be written. This was the version that was always meant to come out. This is the full and complete version, and it was designed this way. So they did a really good job with making it not feel clunky, like unfortunately they did with Sumi. So remember how I mentioned that I was just kind of like on Akechi and vanilla? Well, he was actually slowly becoming one of my favorite characters in third semester, because once he was like actually like kind of just like unhinged and crazy, I always like the funny, sarcastic characters, and like he was entertaining, right? He was entertaining, and he no longer just like a whiny brat or whatever. Like he was actually entertaining, and I felt like he actually got to be fleshed out, and he actually felt interesting this time. So he was actually becoming one of my favorites, which I was really surprised by. So to all the people who said to me that Akechi would be my favorite, and whatever, and last video I said, y'all are wrong. That's so stupid. I hate this man. I hate his guts. Worst character ever. I hate to say it, but you guys might have been right in the end. He wasn't my favorite, but I did end up liking him a lot more in Royal. So hats off to you guys who predicted this, and I'm sorry for everything I said last time. And so I'm not gonna really like harp on the whole like Sumi plot twist. I was also unfortunately spoiled for that years before I even played Persona 5, just because I somehow had accidentally stumbled on the cutscene and thinking I would never play the game. I was like, oh, sure, I'll watch this. But, you know, I still thought it was really cool. I really liked that. It's just, I feel like they also fumbled the bag on that a bit, especially one particular issue I have is they don't update her Violet model to reflect the change from Kasumi to Sumire. And so it still feels like you're dealing with Kasumi. And so even though her whole story is supposed to be like, I am who I am now, like I don't want to be pretending to be my sister anymore, I want to be myself, it feels like then the developers are then also like, yeah, but we do kind of like you as Kasumi more. So that was just like something I felt mildly irritated about, because I really liked Kasumi, but I feel like Sumire, they really could have done a better job with her. So I liked Kasumi, and honestly, I got to the point where I almost wished she just would have stayed as Kasumi. Not because I didn't think her plot twist was cool, or that Sumire could have been a good character, it just felt like they did not do a good enough job of fleshing out Sumire, making her feel individual and distinct, and then the whole like added not giving her a new updated model, it just felt like it was also their subtle way of saying, yeah, we like Kasumi more too. Anyway, going back to Maruki. I really like him as a villain. Like, I always appreciate, you know, generally sympathetic villains, but what really got me about his is that I think if somebody were to try to do what he did, like in real life, most people would probably be like completely chill and fine with it, right? And so it was just really interesting because he I don't even think what he was doing was necessarily wrong per se. He just was on like totally different wavelengths than the Phantom Thieves. And so it was like really, really well done, because I honestly was questioning like how wrong he really was, although definitely the man was totally losing it by the time you get later in his palace. But as far as actual motivations go, like he was really interesting, and it just really makes you wonder, like, be so real, how many people here, right, would be like, oh, somebody wants to make me happy forever? Oh my god, awful. Like, I hate that. I hate you. I don't want that. Like, I definitely think it's really interesting how he was talking about how it's just easier for everybody to give into what he wanted. Because, yeah, I mean, I think he's probably right. I mean, I don't think most people are going to be out here like the Phantom Thieves who are like, yeah, free will at the, you know, cost of everybody being miserable. So, I really like him. I thought he is easily the best villain in the game. And to me, he's just like, I don't know. Like, I wish more villains would be like him, because he was, like, genuinely really interesting. And I don't even know if morally gray is the right word. Like, he had good morals. He was just also slowly losing it and losing sight of what he wanted in the first place. And it was just, like he really felt like a mad scientist. And I really liked that. It was really cool. Oh, and his palace, though, was, like, amazing. Like, I loved it. I loved the idea of, you know, him being this very, like, positive guy, and then his palace is, like, a lab where they're conducting like experimentation on people, and like a happiness lab, except you're screwing with people in reality. And I just thought that was super cool. I loved it. I do unfortunately have to add a bit of a side rant here, and feel free to be like, oh my god, girl, you are reading too much into this, but I am a psych minor. I've taken a lot of psych classes and neuroscience classes. And the whole stuff, the way they talk about cognition in this game, drives me up the wall. Because I understand it's a video game, right? But I feel like if you want your whole third act to be surrounding psychology and cognition is also like the founding base of all the stuff with the Phantom Thieves, right? Then you should at least have somebody on the team who has a decent understanding of what it is. My problem in particular, and again, I get it's fiction, but when you're really trying to like be throwing around words and root it in actual science, the least you could do when it's a building block of your game is just have somebody on the team who's a little more informed with it. So I had a problem specifically with how they use cognition. So the way they use cognition in this game, they throw it around like it's a magic word, genuinely. They throw it around like cognition is just something you can change at will. And basically they're treating it like it's some sort of like a magic thing. And they just almost act like people, by changing your cognition, you can make yourself happier, you can change your personality, you can do all these things just by changing your cognition, by like changing the way you think about something. You can completely change yourself, reinvent yourself as a person. And the way they treat it, it's like it's some sort of like voodoo magic thing. And it just feels like somebody did a quick like Wikipedia search for cognition, saw the word change, and they were like, I got it. No, so it just drives me crazy because they just completely miss the point on what changing cognition means. So to change your cognition is something you can refer to in psychology and neuroscience, but it's mostly something you would see in like therapy, actually kind of similar to like what Maruki was doing with Sumire. But when you change your cognition, here is an example of what actually changing your cognition of something in the real world would be like. And consider this your educational bit for the day if you came to this video wanting to learn. So changing your cognition would be something kind of like, if your friend ghosts you for whatever reason, right? You text your friend, you ask to hang out, and your friend kind of doesn't get back to you for a while. You know, a lot of people would start instantly thinking, oh my god, they hate me. They don't like me. I'm not a good friend. And you know what? Totally reasonable. We all do that. Changing your cognition of that would basically be finding a way to reframe the event in your mind and thinking to yourself, what other possibilities could be leading them to not get back to me yet? Maybe something awful happened. Maybe they're really busy. Like, there's a whole bunch of other reasonable explanations that aren't, they hate me, they're ghosting me, our friendship is over. And so when you change your cognition, what it basically means is you're reframing the way you think about something. And in this case, maybe you're reframing it as they might just be really busy with homework. Spoiler alert, I totally do this all the time, and I really am busy with homework, and I'm not ghosting people. But so it's reframing it as something like maybe they're just busy with homework. And over time, practicing this behavior of when you have events that make you feel anxious that somebody doesn't like you, finding a way to reframe it in your mind that this is not what you're automatically thinking it is, like mentally reframing this under a different light can over time help you change your behavior. So maybe it's not like texting somebody when they haven't texted you back in a few hours and be like, oh my god, I'm so sorry, what did I do? Or hey, is everything like blah 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 blah. It's like, so that eventually can lead to a change in behavior. By changing the way you view an event and the way you think about something, it can eventually lead to changes in behavior as a result of you consciously reminding yourself there might be another explanation for somebody else's behavior and not just instantly going with like the panic button, for example. That is what changing cognition means. So yes, changing your cognition of an event can change your behavior if it's something you're consciously doing and reframing, but it's not like a magic switch. It's something you consciously do. I do this all the time. I always confuse fireworks and gunshots. So I constantly, when I hear something that sounds like it could be gunfire, I'm constantly reframing my mind, thinking other reasons. Maybe the local NFL team just won a game. Maybe like somebody else is celebrating something. Maybe it's somebody's birthday. And just constantly reframing it to the point where when I hear stuff that sounds like it could be gunfire but is likely fireworks, I don't have like a physiological reaction to that anymore like I used to. I don't get all like anxious or anything because so many times I've just repeated to myself all the other reasons I could be hearing that sound. That's probably not a shooting. Long-winded explanation, but you get my point. And so to just see them throw around these words like they're magic words, it's just so frustrating, especially because like, I don't know, occasionally like on Persona 5 threads or in like YouTube comments, I see people talking about how like it makes them like interested in psychology and neuroscience. I'm like, that's great, like study that stuff. That stuff is awesome. I love it. But it's not what they're talking about. And, you know, for a game that's supposed to be, to some extent, kind of like, it's supposed to be in the real world, it drives me crazy. And so I just want to clarify that a bit, because if you look up changing cognitions on Google, you'll find, oh wow, that is a real thing. Yeah, it is, but it's not what Persona 5 says it is. And it's just a side rant, and I just wish they would have done a bit more research to ground it a little bit more in the real science. But thank you for coming to my TED Talk. I hope you learned something. But yeah, going back to Maruki, which is what I should have been talking about. Yeah, the multiple endings, they're cool. It's just, I get the point they were trying to make with the true ending not necessarily being the happiest one. I get that. I respect it. It just, I know they're trying to align it a bit more with real life, but to some extent, it also kind of goes back and proves Maruki's point that it does seem like most of them would have been happier, except maybe Akechi, who's just always mad for some reason if you don't do the true ending. And so it's just, I don't know. I just feel like there were ways they could have made the royal ending feel a bit more satisfying and on a better note, but just give me 1 second, I will talk about that more. Because here's what I'm thinking, right? I totally appreciate endings that aren't like perfectly happy. Like, there's nothing wrong with a good, realistic ending. Because the reality is that people do go their separate ways after high school, after college, after like all sorts of things. I don't have a problem with that. What I do have a problem with is that the ending feels very final. And basically, what I'm trying to say by that is it just feels like, compared to other games, not only do you not know what these characters may have done in the future, it also really makes you question how much of an impact the whole story, the whole game really had on society outside of just the Shido stuff. Like, even with the Shido stuff, I was really left wondering, like, their whole message is reform society. And as everybody's leaving, going their separate ways, I'm like, how much did society, like, actually reform, though? So yeah, we know Shido's a bad guy now. But what? Like, I would have thought there would have been like something like a blurb about how more people have been inspired to take social change into their own hands, or maybe, you know, something kind of like Three Houses where you see what characters do at the end, like maybe a hinting that, you know, Joker or somebody is like having aspirations and maybe going into a political career where they can make real change in society. And so for a game that's whole thing, like literally the opening song is about change and social change, the ending is just not very good at making you feel like the actions of the characters and the player in the game really had a lasting impact on the society around them. Outside, yeah, you ousted a few criminals and some bad guys, which is good. But when your whole message is change society, it feels a lot less like they changed society, more like they caught a few criminals. And that's not bad, it just does not feel consonant with the messaging in this game about changing society. If they literally had just included a line in the end about like Joker and Makoto talking about how their dream is to go into politics so they can like make a real lasting change on society, because that's what they've learned from this, that would have helped. But when everybody is splitting up, and so you're supposed to expect there's a good chance these characters will not see each other again, nobody is mentioning, like, none of the NPCs or anyone is mentioning how the Phantom Thieves have like really inspired them to make a change in the future, and the Phantom Thieves themselves are not talking about the changes they're going to make in the future. It just really does not feel like their actions had a lasting impact. Unlike Fire Emblem Three Houses, which I'm going to mention again, or other games where it feels like you can see the change they've made, or you know that there's going to be change. This is one where it feels like the change was mostly catching criminals, and it really feels like a bit of a letdown. Joker in particular, he ends with, he goes Sumi in the train station. He gets on the train, he sees his, like, persona disappearing, and he goes back to whatever he's doing. But it just feels like, it just doesn't feel final enough in that, you know, it just doesn't feel like we know that this really made a change. Like, how much did he even grow as a person, right? Like, so the whole thing is supposed to be about, you know, changing society and, like, the Phantom Thieves growing as characters. So yeah, they were friends for a year, and it's not wrong to want to split them up at the end, but it feels like a lot of the stuff they wanted to pursue didn't have really much to do with the game's messaging, which was about change. It was more about them just like on traveling. She's been traveling. She literally isn't even from Japan. She's been traveling. But so like it just felt like I did not really get the vibe. A lot of them felt like their lives have been seriously changed. The only exception is Sumire. She is the only exception. And even then, you could argue, has her life really changed for the better? I don't know, but at least she had, like, actual change. She went back to being who she was supposed to be and grew. The others, though? I don't know. It sucks because the game is great, the storytelling on the whole is great, but the ending just feels fumbled in a variety of ways that really leaves you wondering, did this, A, really substantially change the characters and their trajectory in life? And B, did it really change society or other members of society? And if the answer to that is no, then what is the whole point of the messaging about change society? Why does no one want change? I don't know, like the change was just we caught a few bad guys, they're in jail, which is great, but that's not really change, that's just locking people up. So, it's a better ending than vanilla for sure. I definitely feel like the stuff with Maruki at least adds a bit of closure, but it still felt like there was a lot of stuff missing. So for all the great stuff they added with having this really amazing moral debate villain in Maruki and everything with Akechi, it also felt like they dropped the ball on just making a good, complete ending. And I feel it sucks because they're like 0 for 2 with having like good endings to the game. And it's just like for a game with such good storytelling and great characters and everything, how the heck do you screw this up twice? Like, they're not horrible endings, sure, but like other games have like had far messier like midsections and still managed to tie everything up nicely. How does Persona not manage to do that? Alright, so let's move on to the characters. To be so real with you, I don't have much to say about most of the Confidants, so I'm just going to talk about the main characters because you deal with them for dozens of hours. So Ryuji, he was a consistently fun character the whole way through. I liked him a lot. My feelings about him never really changed the whole way through. I always liked him. He was always a really enjoyable member. Ryuji's great. Nothing else to say. An, I initially really liked. She is amazing during the Kamoshida arc, but unfortunately for her, she really loses steam after like the next like 2 palaces. And I started liking her less and less because there were just more like interesting and relevant female characters that got added that were all like outshining on. And it just really feels like partway through the game, the writers just really did not know what to do with her anymore, which sucks because she is a great character to start off the game and she just really loses steam. Yusuke, I never really liked. Don't hate me. I just don't like him. Didn't like him from the start, didn't like him at the end. I just kind of tolerated him and his haircut. Makoto was probably my favorite of the group. She just kind of felt like the default parent of the group. But it's also possible I just really liked her because I tragically saw a lot of myself in her. Hahaha, perfectionist. We love to see it. But I did romance her just because she really felt like the only okay option. But yeah, I liked her. She also starts wearing on you towards the end, but Makoto was my favorite, so yay Makoto. Futaba grew on me. I generally liked her throughout. She's cute, she's fun, she's sweet. I will say though, I do think it's, and don't hate me, I think it's kind of weird you can romance her because she's like 13. Like, yeah, like the main character is like also a teenager, but he's also like kind of like her adoptive brother. And like, unless you're also like a teenager, it's kind of weird to pick Futaba because she's like 3. I don't know. It just kind of made me feel icky that she was even available as a romance option. Like, she's cute and sweet. She's a little sister. So that part just kind of threw me for a loop. I don't like that for her, but yeah, other than that, she's fun. I like her, especially once you get out of her palace. Haru's unfortunate, because Haru, I feel like, actually has a lot of potential. Like, come on, there's always so much storytelling potential with the rich kid. And I really liked her storyline with her fiance and her dad, but it feels like they just had to rush everything and just cram it in there because they added her in so late. So if like they decided to make this game again for a 3rd time, Persona 5 Royal Remake, I don't know. They just need to bring Haru in sooner and really expand on her plot lines because she had a lot of potential and I really wanted to like her. She just felt like she was added so late. She just never really felt like a core part of the group. I don't get the hate for Morgana, alright? He's fun and entertaining throughout. Like, aside from when you meet Haru, which he is, like, very annoying for, I actually really like him. I don't get the Morgana hate. I feel like it's totally irrational, like, why people hate him. Like, he's fun, he's silly, I, like, really liked him. Like, I don't get the hate from Morgana. Stop the Morgana hate. Now, I said I wanted to talk about the Confidants, but there is one exception I have to talk about. Because I hate him. I hate Mishima. Literally so much. He is so annoying. Like, he gets a little tolerable at the end, but here's why. Because I just maxed out his Confidant as early as possible, so I didn't have to deal with him for the, like, next 60 hours. Like, his whole personality is the Phantom Thieves, and it's like, dude, the Phantom Thieves don't even care about being Phantom Thieves as much as you care about being associated with the Phantom Thieves. Like, it's really given off, like, you know, oh, my sister is famous vibes and riding their coattails of fame. Like, I get the story they were trying to go for him, but, like, he is really irritating. Oh, and speaking of Mishima, I had like this irrational fear he was actually going to become like a phantom thief at some point, and I was so excited when he doesn't, because nobody deserves it less than that little brat. So I know Kawakami is a bit controversial, which I totally get, because yeah, it does feel a little weird having Joker chill with his teacher when the first like villain in the game is another teacher. But I did kind of think, like, even though her maid thing is a little weird, I thought it was kind of sweet, her whole story about, you know, her prior student and wanting to be a better teacher. So is she kind of a little bit of an uncomfortable confidant choice? A bit, but I also felt like she grew on me a lot. Like, she was honestly pretty sweet. But don't romance her either, because that is also weird. Also, Oya, or however you say her name, that god-awful journalist lady, dude, she's the worst. She's actually the worst. I went out of my way to avoid her whenever possible. She's like Kawakami, but without any of the good qualities. Like, she's creepy, she is horrible, and as a confidant, she is also useless. If you're playing this game for the first time, don't even bother with her. There might have been others I felt strongly about that I'm forgetting confidant-wise. If you want to ask me about one in the comments, I can tell you what I thought about them, but this video is already really long and we don't need to hear me ramble about them anymore. So, overall thoughts on the gameplay. I did not like it in the slightest when I started, and it really grew on me through the end. I started really enjoying it. I will say though, that is because I got a really over-leveled persona really early. In Madarame's palace, there's this one dude who has resistance to like 3 different elements. And I loaded up every element that I didn't already have on my team onto this guy, and I never switched personas. Ever. He was just too good. So I loved exploring the palaces and mementos, and I honestly think that there is not enough exploration in this game. There's not enough battle gameplay or exploration. I feel like for a game this size, there really should be another palace or 2. It just definitely feels like, ideally, you want to have a pretty good balance of social sim gameplay, obviously all the like talking and plot stuff, and then battle and exploration stuff, and it just feels like for a game this size that takes 120 hours just to get through, it felt like there really needed to be a slightly greater share of battle gameplay, and they really would have benefited from having an extra palace. The 2 things a day that I complain about, that never stopped being irritating, so I just maxed out all the social skills as soon as I could, so I never had to worry about it again. I never learned how to fish, or do the baseball stuff, or like some of the other stuff, and you know what, that's cool. The great thing about Persona 5 is you can focus on what you want to focus on. I was not good at that stuff, and I decided, you know what, I'm not dealing with it, and so I didn't, and I had a great game anyway, and so I just prioritized the gameplay that is fun to you. That is what I learned from this. So yeah, I really like the battle gameplay. It was really fun. In case you're curious, my team was on Morgana and Makoto, and then I had Joker with all the other elements that those 3 didn't have. And yeah, I mean, I really liked the battle. I did not like it when I started. I never really like experimented with it very much. I kept the same team throughout unless I really desperately needed like Haru or like Akechi on my team for like a one-off battle. And then, like, I didn't really switch personas in battle, out of battle, like, ever. I never really, like, you know, screwed with doing the weapon stuff and, like, getting, like, the different kinds of, like, augments or whatever they call them in this game. I just got whatever was strongest. I slapped it on people. I got through the game perfectly fine. I had a fun time. I didn't experiment with the battle as much as I could have, or I'm sure a lot of people do, but you know what? I was happy with it. So, overall thoughts. I definitely would put this in my top 5 of games I've played. This one is like Breath of the Wild for me in a lot of senses, and that this is without a doubt one of the best made games I have played. But for whatever reason, I just did not emotionally connect with it nearly as much as I thought I would, which kind of holds it back from being a favorite of mine. Like, Xenoblade 2 is like probably my 2nd or 3rd favorite game ever. That game is... it has problems. It could be made a lot better. It has a lot of problems, a lot of stuff it needs to fix. It is weird at some points, but for some reason, I really emotionally connected to it. I had such a great time with it. I love the characters. I love the story. And for whatever reason, Persona 5, even though constantly I could feel just how much love was put into this and how well made it was, I just can never really resonate with it nearly as much as I was hoping, which isn't a fault of the game. It's just for whatever reason, it didn't connect with me. I don't know why the Phantom Thieves never grabbed me to the extent the cast of Xenoblade 2 or Three Houses did. It just didn't. That's not a fault of the game, like I said. It just didn't, which obviously holds you back from having nearly as much emotional investment in the story. Also, a lot of people talk about Persona 5 as being a game that is genuinely life-changing, and that's great. For me, it just never really was. It was a good game. There were a couple points where I definitely felt really invested in it. But is it like the kind of experience I walked away from where I really feel like it had a significant impact on me? Unfortunately not. But that said, I did still love the positive messaging and the theme behind it. I really liked all the messaging about change. And I mean, so even though it didn't like hit me in the feels, I still really like the messaging they have behind this game, especially as somebody who hates change. So much so that the puppy I was initially supposed to get, I was actually going to name Chloe Haru after Haru because I just needed the constant reminder that it's a good thing to have stuff change in life, especially when you hate change as much as I do. So I really love the messaging behind it. I don't know why it didn't grab me as much as a lot of other people are grabbed by it. But despite not feeling as emotionally connected to it as I had hoped, I still really do love the messaging and the theme behind it. So while I didn't become like totally and hopelessly obsessed with it, it is like the quintessential good JRPG experience, and I really would recommend it as a starter JRPG or just an RPG, honestly, to anybody who's interested in dipping their toes into the genre. I think it, even if you don't like the genre, I think this might still be a really good fit for most people. And did it change my life? Mm-mm. Did I still really like it? I did. It was a great game, and I don't regret the 120 plus hours I spent on it, and you probably won't either. So final rating. Does it deserve all the fanfare it gets? Because I'm sure you all know Persona 5 is kind of treated like it's in a class of its own in terms of RPGs. Conclusion, yeah, I think it deserves most of it. It is a very well polished, very well done game, and it just does so good in so many different things. It has incredible voice acting, it has a whole bunch of different aspects of gameplay for people who are looking for, you know, bits of variety to spice it up. The battle is great. It surprisingly doesn't get repetitive. The palaces are great. They do such an amazing job with the theming. Most of the villains are solid at the very least, and there's some that are genuinely amazing. There's a lot of great messaging and just so much stuff between the characters as well. Like all their like, you know, intrapersonal stuff that it definitely feels relatable for like both like teenagers who are their age, but then also like older people. There's just so much stuff that like I feel like a lot of people can resonate with. So I do think, and of course the music, I can't forget that. I do think it deserves a fanfare, but that said, there is a lot of stuff that it could have done better. And I don't think it's wrong to say a game deserves all the universal acclaim it's gotten while also saying there's room for improvement, particularly around the endings. There's nothing more heartbreaking than a show, movie, game, whatever, that is great throughout but doesn't stick the landing. And unfortunately, while there's some things they could have done better throughout, such as making some of the mid-game villains a bit more interesting and fleshed out, or introducing Haru earlier, making Sumi feel a bit less clunky in her introduction and story, the ending is what hits the most, because I feel like for a lot of people, the ending is what sticks with you the most. And so if you have an ending to a game that's been a gut punch throughout, and then the ending just is really kind of underwhelming and kind of has a bit of a whimper to it, it can definitely impact how you view the game in the end. I do think if this game had a better ending, I would be reviewing it a lot more positively. Not to say I don't like it, but just to say it would have left a much better lasting impression with me. Like, dude, I still remember the first time I got to the end of Three Houses and the credits roll and it tells you what all the students did with their lives. Like, I cried! It was just so good, and I still think about that because they did such a good job of making it feel final and making it feel satisfying. And while this one feels final, it doesn't feel satisfying. And there's ways you can have an ending that's not happy, but still satisfying. And unfortunately, I do have to take off a bunch of points for the ending because it's what should be sticking with you and what helps leave a lasting impression of the game on you. And for whatever reason, they struggled in vanilla and then struggled again in royal. And hopefully whenever the inevitable third edition comes out, as they continue to try to milk it, they will have figured out how to write an ending that's up to par with the writing for the rest of the game. I mean, I honestly don't much to say for like a conclusion to this. Like, I could continue praising this game, but I think you get the gist of it by now. So I'm just going to say this, above all, I am really grateful for this game being like a breakout star for the JRPG genre, because there are so many people who historically would have turned their noses up at a game like this, who have now tried it for the first time and fallen in love with it and also other games of the genre. And it's had just such an impact on so many games stylistically and musically. And I would be hard pressed to find a game that I feel is more deserving of being a breakout title for an entire genre than this one. And so even if you don't love Persona 5 as much as you do other games of the genre, I still think it is a good thing for all these games that of any of the games to go viral, this was the one, because it's just such a good starter game. And I think for most people, it just leaves such a good impression, if nothing else, about the genre on them that it might inspire them to try other games they normally would have just turned their noses up at and said anime garbage. So, did Persona 5 change my life? No, it didn't, but it was still a great game to play during my spring semester last year. I thoroughly enjoyed it, and I really think it's impressive how unique it feels to other games I've played, how, like, I hate using this word, but how iconic it feels in terms of just everything they did. They went above and beyond making a game that stands out, and that's what this game does. Does it have shortcomings? Of course it does. It's hard to find a game that doesn't. Unfortunately, this one has some shortcomings at the end that I feel like deter the experience a little bit to its detriment. But despite all of that, it is a really good game for 99% of it. And I don't think an ending that could have been a little bit better makes it a bad game. I think it is a solid game. Honestly, it's a great game. It's a game that I think just about everybody who wants to get a classic gaming experience should play, because you have no idea the other games you might find you might be interested in if you even remotely like Persona 5. I mean, heck, it's made me decide I'm getting Reload and Revival as soon as I manage to pick up a Switch 2, because I liked Persona 5 enough to say, if this is a game that people say has a weaker story of the three, oh my god, what am I in for with Reload and Revival? Like, I'm so excited for those. Like, you know, I have an obsession with, like, with the Persona 3 battle theme. I'm so sorry, Mass Destruction is so good. And I keep crossing my fingers it'll get, like, a Switch 1 release, and I know it won't. But I'm just so excited to play the other two, you have no idea. I don't know what they're going to do for Persona 6 that is going to top Royal. I mean, they're going to need to pull out all the stops if they want to find a way to top this sleek masterpiece. Maybe Persona 6 doesn't even exist if they decided to end it here. Honestly, I wouldn't even blame them. It's going to be really hard to top it. But yeah, I don't really have much else to say about this. It's a great ride, and you should totally pick it up. But yeah, if you enjoyed this video, please do me a massive favor and consider joining me in stopping Morgana hate. Morgana does not deserve the hate. Morgana is a great character. Morgana deserves a lot more respect. So please start using the Stop the Morgana Hate hashtag and join me in creating a healthier Persona 5 fan base for Morgana fans, such as, unfortunately, myself. Okay, that's about it. I was going to make an ending thing to this and talk about more stuff after the video, but this video has been going on for what I'm seeing is now 54 minutes. So I'm going to stop talking now, but thank you guys as always for watching. Thank you for sticking with me in all the videos I have talked about Persona 5 in as I've covered this. I really hope you have enjoyed getting to listen to me ramble about this for as long as I have, and I hope my psychology neuroscience lecture helped you learn something. So I will see you all again soon. Bye-bye. I'll see ya. That's what I say. I will see ya. I'll see ya.